The projection screen glowed behind Victor Caldwell as he stood in front of 50 people, his hand gesturing smoothly across the algorithm architecture I spent 3 years perfecting in my spare time. Every line of code. Every optimization. Every breakthrough moment happened at my kitchen table at midnight while my wife Michelle slept upstairs. My hands went numb watching him smile. "This represents a paradigm shift in diagnostic imaging," he said, his voice full of practiced confidence. "A technology that could revolutionize how we detect disease months earlier than current methods." The room applauded. My colleagues turned to look at the screen, not understanding they were watching theft in real time. Nobody looked at me. I was sitting in the third row, my jaw so tight I thought my teeth might crack. Victor clicked to the next slide, a photo of Tanya, his girlfriend, a marketing coordinator who has been at the company for 8 months and couldn't write code if her life depended on it. "Our lead developer on implementation," he announced. I felt something break inside my chest, not a dramatic snap, more like the moment before a building collapses. The moment when the structure fails but nobody sees it yet. I excused myself 15 minutes into the presentation and went to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and sat on the closed toilet lid, trying to remember how to breathe normally. 3 years. 3 years of stolen sleep, stolen weekends, stolen pieces of myself poured into that algorithm. I did it in my personal time, on my personal computer, at my personal expense. It was mine. Completely, legally, undeniably mine. And Victor had taken it like it was a memo someone had left on his desk. My hands were shaking when I walked back to the conference room. I stood in the back instead of sitting down. Victor was explaining the technical specifications, incorrectly, I might add, and Tanya was nodding along like she understood anything beyond her job of sending emails to marketing lists. The room lapped it up. They saw a visionary and his talented team unlocking the future. I saw a theft so brazen it almost seemed impossible. Nobody steals something in plain sight. Nobody takes credit for work they didn't do when the real creator is sitting in the same room. Except Victor had. Because Victor believed I was invisible. I cornered him in his office after the presentation. He was still riding the high, adjusting his tie in the reflection of his glass door when he saw me. "Ah, Nathan," he said, his tone changing to something patronizing. "Good meeting, right? Big things are coming for Helix." I closed the door behind me. "That's my algorithm, Victor." He turned slowly, and I watched his expression shift from friendliness to something colder. "You're mistaken," he said flatly. "That algorithm was developed as part of your work at this company. Anything created using company resources belongs to the company, which means it belongs to company leadership. Which means it belongs to me." My voice stayed level even though rage was flooding through me. "I developed that on my own time, on my own equipment, in my own home. There's no company resource involved." Victor sat back in his chair with a smile that made my stomach turn. "Can you prove that, Nathan? Do you have documentation? Timestamps? Witnesses?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Because from where I'm sitting, I have a finished product, board approval, and investor interest." "What do you have?" "A complaint." He stood and walked to the window, dismissing me. "You're welcome to consult with legal if you would like. But think carefully before making accusations against your manager. It tends to affect one's career trajectory," Victor said. Michelle was waiting in the kitchen when I got home, the way she always did. She could read my face before I said a word. "What happened?" she asked, and I sat down at the table and told her everything. I watched her expression shift from confusion to anger to something deeper, a kind of protective fury I had only seen a few times in our marriage. We had been together for 9 years. She knew how much that algorithm meant to me. She had watched me disappear into my office for thousands of hours while she handled the household, the bills, the daily life we shared. She had made space for my dream. And now someone else was taking credit for it. "You need a lawyer," she said immediately. "This is theft, Nathan. This is intellectual property theft. It doesn't matter where you developed it if you did it on your own time." I nodded slowly. I had been thinking the same thing, but hearing it from her made it real. "I'm going to call someone tomorrow," I said. Michelle reached across the table and took my hand. "You're going to fight this," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, spoken with the certainty of someone who had watched me work too hard for too long to let it disappear. We're going to fight this. The algorithm had started 3 years ago as an idea, a small nagging thought that wouldn't leave me alone. I was driving to work one morning when I realized there was a flaw in how current diagnostic software prioritized imaging data. The flaw was inefficient, but fixable. I spent that entire evening sketching out a solution. Then I spent the next weekend coding it. Then the weekend after that. Then weekends for months. I had built a section, test it, break it, rebuild it. I had thought about it while I was eating breakfast, driving to work, and sitting through meetings I didn't care about. The algorithm consumed me because it was good. It was better than good. It was revolutionary. By month 6, I knew it worked. By month 12, I had optimized it to a level I didn't think was possible. By month 18, I had integrated machine learning components that made it so efficient it could process imaging data in real time instead of taking hours. By month 36, it was perfect. I never showed it to anyone at work. I knew the company's intellectual property policies. I knew that if I brought it in, even just to discuss it, ownership would become murky. I kept it completely separate from my professional life. But Victor had been acting strange for weeks before the presentation. He had stopped by my desk more frequently. He had asked more questions about my personal projects. I had been vague, deflecting, giving him nothing. Then one Friday, he asked me to install some software on my work laptop to help with performance monitoring. I thought it was standard IT maintenance. It hadn't been. He used my work laptop to access my home cloud storage, a cloud storage that I had foolishly linked when setting up my new work computer. He found the algorithm folder. He downloaded everything. He had probably spent all weekend reviewing code that had taken me 3 years to write. And then he decided it was his. I realized this on the Monday morning before the presentation. I was checking my cloud storage for something else when I noticed the access logs. Downloaded files. Recently accessed. Victor's IP address. I sat at my desk feeling like I was watching my life being stolen in real time while everyone around me continued typing emails like nothing was happening. I had done something that morning that Victor would never expect. Something that showed exactly how much smarter I was than he would ever be. 7 months earlier, before I showed the algorithm to anyone, before I had even talked to Victor about my work, I had filed a provisional patent application. It had been cheap, a few $100s, just a protective measure. I had done it privately, through an attorney, with documentation of every step of the creation process. Timestamps. Notes. Code versions. Everything. The provisional patent was currently pending with the United States Patent Office, and it was dated 3 years from when I had first started the algorithm. It proved ownership. It proved intent. It proved that I had created this work independently, in my own time, using my own resources. Victor had stolen the algorithm. And then he had committed it to a public presentation that created a paper trail proving the theft. He had made a mistake so enormously that he probably still didn't understand the magnitude of it. Marcus Foster was a patent attorney I found through a referral network. He was based downtown, with a small office that smelled like old books and strong coffee. I brought him my files, my original code, the cloud storage access logs showing Victor's download, the provisional patent application, the presentation slides with images of my exact algorithm. He had spent an hour reviewing everything while I sat in silence, my leg bouncing with nervous energy. When he finally looked up, he smiled slightly. "This is clear-cut," he had said. "You have documentation of creation dating back 3 years. You have a provisional patent filed 7 months ago. You have evidence of unauthorized access to your personal files. And you have a public presentation where the company is now claiming ownership of your work. This is textbook intellectual property theft." I felt something loosen in my chest. "So what do I do?" He leaned back in his chair. "For now, nothing. You let them think they've won. You let them develop it further, invest in it, publicize it. Every dollar they spend, every person they involve, every statement they make about owning it, it all becomes evidence of damages. We'll file a patent application once the provisional expires, and then we'll contact the company. By that point, they'll have far more to lose than they understand right now. The waiting was the hardest part. For 3 months, I went to work and watched Victor parade the algorithm like it was his greatest achievement. He gave interviews to industry magazines. He presented at conferences. He positioned himself as an innovator, a visionary, a leader in the field. And I let him. Every part of me wanted to walk into his office and tell him the truth. But Marcus's words echoed in my mind, let them think they've won. Let them commit further. The more they claimed ownership, the worse it would be when the truth came out. I watched Tanya present sections of the algorithm to investors, and she got basic facts wrong because she didn't understand the underlying technology. That was perfect. That was evidence of incompetence. When the algorithm finally got implemented in beta testing at 2 major hospitals, it worked beautifully, because I had written it to work beautifully. And Victor took full credit. Internally, people were starting to notice the disconnect. Tanya was taking meetings about a product she didn't understand. She couldn't answer technical questions. She smiled awkwardly and said she had, check with the team. One of my colleagues, a woman named Amanda who worked in development, asked me directly one day. Did you have anything to do with that algorithm? I had been careful not to lie. I've contributed to the project, I had said vaguely. But Victor and Tanya are leading the effort. Amanda had nodded slowly, and I had seen the calculation happen behind her eyes. She knew. Or at least, she suspected. But nobody wanted to challenge Victor. He was powerful. He controlled bonuses, promotions, and work assignments. Challenging him meant risking your career. So people stayed quiet. Which was exactly what Victor was counting on. I documented everything with the precision of someone building a legal case. I saved emails. I took screenshots of presentations. I recorded technical discrepancies Tanya made in meetings. I noted dates, times, and witnesses to various conversations. Marcus had advised it. When this goes to court, he had said, you want to have a comprehensive record. Not just of the theft, but of how they used it, how they presented it, what statements they made. I created a secure folder on my personal encrypted drive. I printed physical copies and locked them in a safe deposit box. By month 4 of the waiting period, I had documentation that would make any attorney smile. Victor's arrogance was growing. He had started dropping hints about a promotion. He mentioned a new title, Chief Innovation Officer. He had begun attending executive meetings that he had never been invited to before. He had become untouchable. I watched him in the hallway one day, surrounded by people, laughing about something, completely confident in his position. He believed he had won. He believed I was too small, too quiet, too invisible to actually challenge him. He believed that being a senior manager meant he was protected. He didn't understand that I had been playing a longer game all along. The board approved a $12 million investment in the algorithm's full development. $12 million. Victor announced it in an all-hands meeting, beaming with pride. He talked about Helix's commitment to innovation. He talked about positioning the company as a leader in diagnostic technology. He talked about changing healthcare. What he didn't mention was that every single word of that presentation was my work. Every technical breakthrough was my breakthrough. Every innovation was my innovation. And in 3 months, the patent office would officially recognize me as the inventor. Then the real conversation would begin. I stayed calm. That was the hardest thing and the most important thing. I showed up to work. I did my job. I participated in meetings. I helped debug the algorithm when they asked me to, letting Victor take the credit for my suggestions. I watched him and Tanya be celebrated. I watched investors tour our facilities and praise the development team. And I stayed completely, impossibly calm. My wife asked me some nights how I wasn't losing my mind. Because I know something they don't, I told her. And soon enough, they'll know it too. It was the only thing that got me through those months. The knowledge that he had no idea what was coming. The media started picking up the story. A startup had used the algorithm in their diagnostic platform, and preliminary results showed it could detect certain cancers 6 months earlier than conventional imaging. Victor did an interview with a major business magazine. The headline read, "Visionary leader Victor Caldwell's breakthrough algorithm could transform healthcare." I read the article twice, my stomach acid. Then I saved it to my evidence folder. Every word of praise was a future liability. Every claim of innovation was more evidence of theft. The patent office acceptance letter arrived on a Thursday morning. I had been expecting it, but seeing it in my email still made my hands shake. The provisional patent had been converted to a full patent. Nathan Price was listed as the sole inventor. The date of invention was documented as 3 years prior. The government of the United States officially recognized that I had created this work. I printed the letter. I framed it. I put it on my desk at home next to a photo of Michelle. Then I called Marcus. "It's time," I said. Marcus had nodded on the phone like I could see him. "Send this letter to the company's legal department, attention the board chairman. I'll prepare a formal claim detailing the theft, the unauthorized use, and the damages incurred." That evening, I sent the letter with copies of the patent documentation. I had also sent it to an outside counsel at Helix, not through internal channels where Victor could intercept it. By the time Victor found out, the board would already know. The chess game was entering its endgame. Victor found out on a Friday morning. I watched him walk into the office pale, his phone in his hand. He went directly to his office and closed the door. An hour later, he emerged and called me in. His entire demeanor had changed. The confidence was gone. "What the hell is this patent?" he demanded, holding up a printed copy of the letter. I stayed calm. "It's documentation that I invented the algorithm. Independently. In my own time. 3 years ago." He stared at me like I had suddenly grown a second head. "You can't do this. You can't challenge the company. I'll destroy you." I stood up. "You've already destroyed yourself, Victor. You just didn't know it yet." The cease and desist letter arrived the following week, sent by my attorney to the company's legal team. It was detailed, specific, and devastating. It outlined the theft. It documented unauthorized access to my personal cloud storage. It detailed every public statement the company had made claiming ownership of an algorithm they did not own. It demanded immediate cessation of all claims to the algorithm and compensation for damages. The letter was copied to the board, the company's insurance carriers, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, since Helix was a publicly traded company. Victor stopped coming to work. He took a medical leave, which everyone understood meant he was consulting with lawyers about how to minimize the damage. He tried intimidation before he tried negotiation. He called me at home one evening and told me that if I didn't drop the patent claim, he would make sure I never worked in the industry again. He said he had connections, influence, and the power to destroy my reputation. I listened to him calmly and then hung up. I documented the call. I reported it to Marcus. And I waited for the next move. The legal discovery process was brutal for Victor. My attorney requested all emails related to the algorithm. All communications with Tanya. All discussion of intellectual property. Victor's own emails proved the theft. There was a message to Tanya saying, "I found something amazing on Nathan's laptop. This could be ours." There was another where he instructed the IT department to monitor my cloud storage access. There were communications with the board where he had specifically claimed he had developed the concept and spearheaded the technical framework. Every word was a noose he had tied himself. My attorney presented the evidence to the board. By that point, Helix's insurance company was already negotiating a settlement. The board meeting happened without Victor present. I wasn't there either, but Marcus called me with updates. The board had voted unanimously to recognize me as the sole inventor. They voted to cease all claims of company ownership. They had voted to offer a settlement that included a significant payment and the cancellation of Tanya's employment. Most importantly, they had accepted Victor's resignation, which he had submitted rather than face termination proceedings. He was gone. And everything he had stolen was being returned to me. Victor's resignation was announced to the company as a mutual decision to pursue other opportunities. The official story was sanitized, corporate, designed to minimize embarrassment. But everyone knew the truth. I watched Amanda and my other colleagues piece together what had happened. I started getting calls from people in the industry. Some were congratulating me. Others were asking if I was interested in new opportunities. The algorithm was now legally and officially mine. The question was what I wanted to do with it. I took 3 months off from Helix. Michelle and I used the settlement money to pay off our mortgage, to put money in savings, to breathe for the first time in years. But mostly, I was planning. I was talking to potential investors. I was designing a company around the algorithm, a platform that would make the technology accessible to hospitals and clinics worldwide. By month 3, I had funding. By month 4, I had registered my own company, Price Diagnostics. By month 6, I was ready to launch. 2 years later, Price Diagnostics had contracts with 40 major hospitals. The algorithm had detected over 1,200 early-stage cancers that would have been missed by conventional imaging. Patients were alive because I had spent 3 years developing something I believed in. Victor had taken a position at a smaller biotech firm for significantly less money and prestige than he had at Helix. Tanya had quietly left the industry. And I was building something that mattered. The invisible man had become impossible to ignore. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving you're better than someone else. It's about becoming so much better than you ever were that the people who wronged you become irrelevant.